Hello, and let us talk about factors that influence repair. Whether it's repair by regeneration or repair by fibrosis, are there factors that impair the process of repairing? And I have written for you a couple here. You have to understand that although repairing is a spontaneous process that happens systematically following the removal of the necrotic debris and all the inflammatory infiltrate and all of the microbial agents like the bacteria and the parasites and the viruses and the fungi. Although it happens eventually, but there are certain requirements that are needed in order for the repair process to be finalized and completed and accomplished properly. And the first reason is nutrition. Imagine there is an injury or a trauma, and we have two patients. One of them is suffering from malnutrition, like kwashiorkor disease or marasmus, and you have a healthy individual. And these two have the same injury that led to an inflammation, and now there is time for healing. Which one of them you think will heal or maybe heal faster? The healthy individual, obviously. But the malnutrition patient is lacking very important nutritional substances and vitamins like vitamin C. These vitamins are very important for the process of healing. And these fibroblasts that secrete collagen and respond to tgf-beta released by the macrophages, they need to be healthy. We need these cells. They need a source of energy, glucose. They need these carbohydrates and the fatty acids, and the fatty acids go through the beta oxidation, and the glucose goes through glycolysis and so on, and the bacteria's metabolism must take place in order to extract and provide energy for cellular processes in order to fuel the process of repair. So the first factor is the nutrition. Nutrition is a very important factor. Second factor is infection. Some wounds do get infected. So if a wound that is infected compared to a wound that isn't infected, what do you think would happen? An infected wound with a virus or a bacteria, usually a bacteria, but we have fungi or maybe a parasite, that would actually intensify and exacerbate the inflammation. Now we will have very severe inflammation, and inflammation is the step that must happen before repair. They do not usually happen, they do not happen simultaneously. So now we would prolong and we would even make the inflammation and the trauma even deeper, because these macrophages are degrading the tissue in attempts to remove all of the necrotic debris and remove all of the bacteria and all of the infective agents. So we must make sure that our wound is clean and there are no agents that cause a microbial infection, because that would retard the flow of the processes that leads to first inflammation, and then we would move on to repair. But because if we stay in inflammation for so long, then it would take a very long time for us to move on to the next phase. So the macrophages would be in the classical pathway, the M1 pathway, the microbicidal action pathway. But we need that to end, so now macrophages can move on to the M2 pathway, and that is the alternative pathway, the healing pathway, stimulating these tissue cells to proliferate, and they secrete, also the macrophages secrete tgf-beta in order to cause the healing by fibrosis if necessary. Okay, what else do we have? We have metabolic defects or diseases, chronic diseases like diabetes. You see, diabetes is implicated in delayed healing. So patients who are suffering from diabetes or other chronic illnesses, they have a very difficult time healing because the disease is itself becoming a source of inflammation. What else do we have? Glucocorticoids. Glucocorticoids, although they are very important in lowering the intense immune system inflammatory response, but you have to understand that part of the inflammatory response is also the next phase is healing. Remember, we talked about the macrophage. The macrophage has two pathways: the M1 pathway, the classical pathway, that is responsible for engulfing the microbicidal actions, engulfing all of these infective microbes, the bacterias, the parasites, the viruses, and the fungi, and so on and so forth. And then it shifts to the phase 2, and that is M2 pathway, and that is the alternative pathway. So once you administer glucocorticoids, the actions of the microbes would be they would subside. So now you have low inflammation, but also low healing. What else do we have? I have written down for you mechanical factors like, okay, a strain on the wound. If you have a wound and you just keep pulling the wound, or another injury that that leads to more retraction, or just the opening of the wound some more, that is a very big problem that delays the repair process. What else do we have? We have nutrition. We have the extent and the type of the injury. You know, injuries depend on the tissue. There are labile tissues that are constantly dividing, like in the gastric mucosa, like these cuboidal cells in the lymph nodes, the columnar cells in the gastrointestinal system, the esophagus, for example. You have these squamous cells in the gastric mucosa. These are constantly dividing. These are labile cells. So an injury there would heal in no time. And then you and then you have tissues. Besides the labile tissues, you have tissues that are stable tissues that only divide when needed, like these solid organs, the pancreas, the liver, and so on. So an injury there would stimulate the liver to proliferate. And then there are terminally dividing tissues that do not no longer divide, like the neurons and the cardiac myocytes. These cells, the neurons and the cardiac myocytes, they just do not divide. So imagine an injury in the three. Injury in the labile tissue would heal very fast. Wound injury in the second type of tissue, stable tissues, would differentiate in a little bit longer time. Injuries in the terminally dividing tissues like the neurons and the cardiac myocytes and the skeletal muscles, these are terminally dividing tissues. So an injury there would take forever to heal, or maybe would immediately cause healing by fibrosis because there is no proliferation. They are stuck in the G0 phase. They can never they can never proliferate and heal by regeneration. Okay, what else do I have for you? Okay, the extent of the injury is how deep the injury. So an injury that is localized to the superficial layer would heal faster than an injury that is in the underlying tissue. And the deeper you go, the more time is needed for the healing process. So these are just points for you to think about in our factors that lead to fast healing, or if you have a patient that is taking a very long time to heal, you know why the issue. Okay, thank you very much, and see you in the next video.